Hi there. Today I'm going to be talking to John about his YouTube channel called Indy Over 50, and we will also be talking a lot about music and this and that and the other. Now, he's as far away as he possibly could be because he's from Sydney in Australia. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much. So, John, right then, so we're on our respective YouTube channels, and your YouTube channel is called.
Indy Over 50.
That's right, and mine's just called Gavin Davis Music, which sort of says it all, and I think yours says it all as well.
That
And
says something very different. I set it up for independent musicians over the age of 50 releasing original music on YouTube and Spotify.
wow, that's good. Yeah, and I'm a subscriber. I've been
Thank
watching
you.
your videos. Yeah, and they're very informative, incredibly well put together as well. I mean, I think you've obviously written down a lot of information, but do you put them together on the spot, or are they all very planned out?
Great question. There is planning. There's always a seed of an idea. I don't script them to the letter, try and get it down to bullet points. But the topics, they're kind of like what we've all gone through when we release original new music, the challenge of, well, how do you record it? How do you release it? And then dealing with the fact that it doesn't go viral.
Wow, it's a little bit. It's true, isn't it? It's not. I mean, I suppose. It's like having multiple needles stuck in a haystack. And, these needles are very purposeful. They do their job. They're incredibly, well
Mm.
put together, but they're impossible to find unless you use some form of logic, or skill. And that there's a lot to that, isn't there, to actually getting your music out there.
There is a lot to and look, it has to start with the song. But what I tend to find now is that the song is usually really good and quality, like the quality of what you can achieve now. You're in a home studio environment there, it looks like, and I'm sure
Yeah.
what you've got access to now is eons beyond our favorite artists had to deal with in the 60s and 70s, and you can do it all now on your laptop.
Yeah, the best they would probably have had is a really very badly put together reel to reel recorder, and that's probably the best
I, I had
if they were
a
lucky.
I had a Tascam Porta 2, which was the old
Ah,
small cassette tape, but four tracks, two tracks going in, one direction and two stereo tracks going in the other, but they monopolized them all to go in one direction. That gave you the four tracks. We felt very special doing that. But of course, it wasn't the same quality as Abbey Road and the Sgt. Pepper's four track.
not at all. But
All
yeah,
the engineering, all the talent.
yeah, I did the same. I had but being a bit of an electronics engineer as well, I was a bit electronics formulated. I managed to get hold of a Yamaha four track MT4, I think it was called, or something like that.
Oh, that was the good stuff. That was the good stuff.
Well, it didn't work. I think one track of the four tracks actually recorded anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I spent weeks on it, trying to repair it, and
It
I
was a
got it
rite of
working in the
passage, wasn't
end.
it? It was a rite of passage, getting dodgy gear, or
Oh
you'd
yeah,
finally save up something and you go and get something that was at the limit of what you could expend, and then you find out
that's
it doesn't
it. That's
work,
it.
or it takes out the power of my parents' house. I remember that.
Well, one thing I remember is I had my first job, and I'm like there, and I'm saving up and saving up and saving up, and I see these things called rototoms. Do you remember those?
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, this was a
I'm a drummer.
six.
I'm a drummer, so
I
I
know, I
appreciate
know,
that.
I know you're doing. Yeah, yeah. So we're going to talk about that in a moment. We'll talk about that. But I don't know whether you remember, they did some very strange rototoms when they first came out, and this one was an 18-inch rototom, and a 20-inch. They were huge,
Wow.
absolutely huge things. So I'd seen them at, I think it was on Colmore Row in Birmingham, if anyone knows that. But there used to be a shop called Musical Exchange, and it's quite a famous shop in Birmingham. Since closed down. And anyway, so I'd said I want to buy those, and luckily I was having drum lessons at the time, so I could say to the shop owner, say, "Can you hold those on for me?" So I'd saved up loads of money. I think it was about 40 quid, £40, nothing major,
It was a
and
ransom.
yeah, it was at that time,
It
and then
was a
then
ransom.
exactly, and I bought them, and I went up to collect them, and I thought, how the hell am I going to get these back home? They're like huge things. Two of them mounted on a big stand. The stand was as heavy as lead. And I ended up having to almost walk them home and then try and hop on a bus with them. And these are the things we had to do in those days.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're endearing memories though, because it always speaks to you about the
Oh, yeah,
sacrifice and the money and also sort of the complexity we were dealing with at that stage. The size of the amps,
exactly.
everything was big and heavy. A
Oh,
decent
God, yeah.
bass cabinet or drum kits are still the same unless you got the electric ones. They're still a hassle to load and take around.
So let's ask you a couple of questions then, if we can, John, because this is sort of like a very informal sort of interview. And I imagine quite a few of your subscribers, and actually your subscriber count's doing really, really well, isn't it, as well? So
Thank
you're
you. I'm
not
very excited.
far off that, big 1,000, are you now?
It's interesting when you start a channel and you've gone through this process. You think, am I going to get a 1, 10, 100 subscribers? And it's almost impossible to think about. And I didn't tell family or friends. With every time I put a single out or something on Spotify, I tell everyone I can. Anyone
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
sat next to a bus 30 years ago gets an email from me saying, I've just put out this new recording. Um, so I was quite concerned, and I just had no idea how it would be received. But we talked a little bit about the viral before, and certainly nothing went viral. But one of the videos has clocked up heading towards 9,000 views or something like that,
Wow.
and that's been a real source of engagement with this community, and that's what's been really exciting for me. It's about meeting people like yourself, people all around the world with amazing stories and backgrounds and shared challenges, with, hey, I'm releasing music. And it's either, there's a variety of backgrounds. There are people who've been professional gigging all their lives, but they're independent. Maybe they had a recording contract in the 80s or 90s, and certainly had many who are in that circumstance. And there are others that never came to music until they were 50, and then they picked up a guitar and they're writing
Wow.
songs and they're releasing them. Or there's people like me and maybe an enthusiastic amateur throughout my career and out of an interest, and done some professional gigs, but would never describe myself as a working musician. And so we all come from different backgrounds around music, but we've also got so many shared challenges and interests as well.
Why don't you walk us through your first steps in music?
Thanks, Kevin. My first steps in music. I think as I was growing up, my father was a bank manager, so we moved around different towns. And at one stage, I was in school down in Wollongong on the south coast of New South Wales in Australia, and it was a music class, and I decided to pick up the drum and the drums, and that inspired some interest, because basically music class you had to do something, and for some reason I got attracted to the
Yeah.
drums and enjoyed the drums, and very thankful to my parents who invested in. I think I got 6 lessons from a drum teacher to go and learn the basics of drums, which have stood me in good stead. They're the only lessons I've ever had, and that probably inspired a sense of music. But what really inspired my songwriting and my broader musical journey was A couple of years later, I go and see a film in 1979 called The Birth of the Beatles or Backbeat or something like that. It was about that period of Hamburg slash Liverpool and the formation of the band before they finally, went to America or made it big in the UK. And it was just so exciting and inspiring. And then I had to wear a collarless shirt with a black vest and feel as though I was following in their footsteps, and started writing songs and tried to sing like them. And of course, couldn't sing like them. Still can't sing. Could definitely drum like them. In fact, I ended up with a drum kit that looked very much like the Beatles drum kit. And so that was the beginning of my musical journey. And but yeah, it was really then the glue that's held it together through my career as a musician. And I do like your perspective on whether you're professional, amateur, or semi. Um, but is my career as a musician, songwriting has been my true passion, and that was probably ignited by those Beatles, and something I pursue to this day.
So why don't you let us into your journey with YouTube?
Yeah, thanks, Gavin. Look, it's been really, really exciting. And by the way, we never asked for birth certificates, so we'll take you at your word, and surprising as it is. But look, it really started. I was just following the YouTube rabbit hole. Just sometimes I'm watching on my TV as you do now, and there's so many interesting topics, and a few of the flavors for me, what's going on in politics, some of my sports teams, and music. But music offers up some adjacencies as well. And I started seeing presentations from a guy called Kevin Colby, and he was saying,
Ah, Kevin, yeah.
yes, Kevin Colby saying why you should start your YouTube channel over the age of 40. So he's literally got a YouTube channel dedicated to those of us over the age of 40, in his case, who want to start a YouTube channel. And he's presenting the reasons why you should do it. He's giving you tips on how to do it, and how do you come up with new topics, and he's in my view, is a great communicator, and he's been really inspiring and helpful for me. I've never connected with him directly. I subscribe to him, and he's acknowledged. I think I shouted out in one of my videos, and it made me think about over the age of 40, over the age of 50. There's a special time for us as musicians, right? So over the age of 50, there's a lot of things that are different in our life. And I thought that was a bit of a common thread. I'm 61, and I'm at this stage, this fortunate stage now, where I've had a successful career. I'm still in what I call a portfolio career stage, so I do work, but I don't have a day job. I've got a series of boards and advisory board type of engagements, so I've got a lot of flexibility, and
Yeah.
I've got the passion to engage around music. And so I thought there's going to be a lot of people in my circumstance, and that's why I started sharing stories about how do you release a song on Spotify, and how do you get heard, and I think at that stage, how did I get my 38,000 streams I've had on Spotify at that point of time, and so that's what I set as a vision. My original name was going to be Almost Famous, which I thought was a great name for the channel.
That's
And then,
pretty cool.
that's a pretty cool name, but I thought it
Yeah,
was
it
also
is.
a bit copyrighted as well. So, and then I
Ah,
just thought
yeah.
of Indy Over 50, and I like the alliteration of that. I like the rhythm of Indy Over
Hmm.
50, and it's felt really really easy, and it's helped me engage with so many people like yourself. Like, how lucky am I to meet Gavin and have this amazing conversation
You're
and
not
connection
you're
across.
not that lucky.
Seriously, no, but seriously, the type of stories we can share and engage on. Now,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
we all know in any circle of 100 acquaintances and friends and family, there'll be X amount of musos. And
Yeah.
then out of those, there's so many that are maybe songwriters. And then out of those,
Hmm.
not many that have actually put out a record or
No.
released something. Whereas now I've got the opportunity to connect with this community globally.
Yeah.
And it feels really empowering because it can be a really lonely
Yeah.
venture.
It is.
It can
Yeah.
be it can be, it can lack reward if you think that you're going to put a song out and get the million streams. And so, checking our expectations, not only about the quality of our song, but also what we're prepared to invest in it with marketing, and then also our expectations, realistic expectations
Hmm.
of what we can achieve, of what we can expect from having put it out there. And by the way, none of those are wrong.
No.
It's your song, you do you. It's you can just getting it out there is a success in itself, and you don't need to spend another dime if that's what you don't want to do. And finally, on the expectations, there's no reason for you not to believe that it is the best song ever,
Yeah.
and it may still be. And it may just be that your story hasn't been written yet, and that's kind of what Indy Over 50 is about.
Yeah, and that really is like sort of a description of nearly every musician over 50, really, that
Yeah,
hasn't already been, or if maybe they made it in their 20s and
yeah,
then decided to, step back a little. And the reasons for making music as well are changing because, I mean, I make music. I think you're the same. I would think I make music because I like making music, and it's not. I'm not necessarily thinking I want to make money on that.
mm,
And being a musician and having a successful career, another successful career, you see all the struggling musicians out there that are just musicians, and you think, well, I don't really want to live in a little hut. I don't really want to live in a flat or a flat share and I suppose, I mean, I'm not trying to in any shape or form belittle the way that music is, but unfortunately, there's less than 1/4% people can actually make a living, a
it's
proper,
very, very
true
fine.
living.
Yeah.
Mm.
I actually
Uh,
left my corporate job when I was 23. I had finished my degree. I'd already had 6 or 7 years in the workforce, and I gave it away to pursue music. And for 1 year,
ah,
I put out a record, vinyl record,
yeah, I
and
remember those.
yeah, it was a single. We couldn't afford
Yeah.
the 12-inch, but we put out two songs on the vinyl 7-inch, and put out a record. And I think at the end of that year, it wasn't successful. It
Hmm.
by any measure, but I took away so much joy from the process. So much life lessons that have been incredibly powerful in business. The value of cash
Mm.
flow and relationships and persistence. But I also knew at the end of 1 year, uh, in self-reflection, I'm not talented. I don't have the singing voice that I thought I did at the beginning of that venture, and that's okay. So I'm comfortable with that now, and I have a huge respect for people who can actually sing.
Hmm.
I think I can back myself a little bit on the songwriting, and that's what's keeping me interested and going. But what I really learned was if I was really going to make a success, I could have, but it would have been after another 10 years, and then maybe I would have
Mm.
been an overnight success. And
Yeah.
I wasn't, as you just said, I wasn't prepared to make that investment.
Yeah.
I was
And that
conscious about it.
and I think that is the most sensible decision that a human can make. You as long as you don't feel at the end of the day that you've missed an opportunity and you've I don't know,
I gave
you
it a shot.
feel. Yeah, and I think to be fair, even if you give, I mean, I don't know whether I've been like in exactly the same way. I think I started to have like a day off,
Mm.
15 years ago. Sort of a day to like have a go at my music, but the guilt sort of came in because I could earn so much more money
Mm.
for the family. I mean, I don't
Yes.
earn money for myself, but I earn it for the family. And I've got two sons and wife, and you think, well, hang on, I'm sitting here, I'm doing my music, I'm having fun, but I'm also not having fun because I'm thinking, well, I could have earned X, Y, Z
Mm.
today. Instead, I'm earning nothing, but I'm creating songs and doing my music, and at that time when I started doing that sort of thing, I was working with some of the top guys in the music industry, and for nothing. And they were, in a way, sort of exploiting the fact that I'd got the skills from an engineering perspective to record. I didn't feel that way, and they didn't feel that way, and it
Just
could
Gavin, I
have
think we
gone
need
in.
to hold the presses if we're talking about exploitation in the music industry.
Yeah. I mean, come on. Yeah. I mean, like as if everybody, oh, I think I could write a book on exploitation. Even my very first audition ended up as an exploitation, that type of a thing. Yeah, my very first drumming audition, I got, we might as well chat about it. What the hell? We're having a bit of a, I'm enjoying this. It's cool. So,
Thanks, Gavin.
so
I am too.
yeah, I'm in Birmingham. My dad, we see this advert in the mail, in the local rag, as they call it. Drummer wanted, blah blah blah, usual thing, whatever. So I phoned this up, and they said the first question he said was, "Have you got a drum kit?" I said, "Well, I'm a drummer. How can you be a drummer without not having a drum?" "Great. Can you get yourself to this audition room in the centre of Birmingham? Blah blah blah. Set your kit up, and we'll go." And that's fine. As I went, yeah, it's fine. When? Such and such a day. Blah blah whatever. Drove up. Very difficult place to park. This is relevant. It doesn't sound it, but it is. But it was very
No.
difficult place
With
to
drums, it's
park.
always relevant. It's drums,
Exa-
it's always relevant.
it is. So I'm stuck on double yellow lines.
Yep.
And me and my dad are rushing my drum kit up 3 flights of stairs. So I get there, get the drum kit all set up, and the guy says to me in the audition, my dad sits with the car outside, and then goes off and finds a place to park. He manages to, and then comes back to the audition. We go into the room, and there are another 6 or 7 people in the room, and I don't know who they are. There's a band, and there's 6 or 7 people, and the guy comes up to me and said, "Do you mind these other people using your drum kit?"
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm a young drummer. I'm like, what, 18,
Of course.
17? What am I going to say? Am I
Of
going to say
course.
no? So I say, okay, yeah, that's fine. And so there's another 6 drummers. That's who these 6 people were. So they got to play right at the end, right at the last drum. All these drummers were way better than I was. Right at the end, he said, "Oh, do you want to do your bit now?" And I went, "Yeah, okay, fair enough." And they literally they played with me for like 2 minutes, if that. All the other guys, these were pro, people, and they'd said to these other drummers, because I talked to them afterwards, "We've got a drum kit, just come and do an audition." And so they'd used me
That's
to
right.
get the drum kits up there.
You've been exploited and
Yeah.
capitalized on your double yellow lines
Yes.
and 3 stories with your dad. Oh,
Exactly.
that's a great story, Gavin.
It's a crazy story, isn't it? It's a crazy
It's a
story. So
cracker. Yeah.
I know. So yeah, with exploitation in the music business, and oh god, that's a whole other thing, isn't it? The amount of things that I've seen going on. And when you're talking about, I know you talk on your channel sometimes about, write a song, make a song, but you've got to put some marketing into the background of it. You really have. And I totally understand and totally get that. But it doesn't always work. Now, a friend of mine who shall remain nameless, nameless, did an album. It was probably one of the best albums that I've ever heard. Amazing album. This guy's an amazing drummer as well. So he put this band together. They recorded at well-known studios, got it all working, got a full album, got a press kit, got everything. He invested 186,000 British pounds into this album. And to this day, he hasn't broken even. and it was some of the best music. It was different, amazing vocals. They went down a storm in Russia, went down a storm in Brazil. They
Great.
also ended up being the theme tune to Sky Sports.
Wow.
So they got that, and he still hasn't broken
Yeah.
even with the
Yeah.
investment that he made into it. So, sometimes if you're doing this for a bit of self-love, and I don't mean it in a bad way, I mean that in a really good way, because we're
Yeah. Yeah.
musicians, you want your songs to be heard. If you
Yes.
invest sort of 30, I mean, I used Groover, and I
Yeah.
managed to get nearly 26,000 streams on just one track. And I just advertised that one track. And to me, that sort of proves that my music is listenable, and people will engage with it. But the problem nowadays, I find, is that they may well engage with the advertised song, but they won't necessarily go in search of, and
To create real engagement, that they became a
yeah,
follower and then engage your channel directly and then listen to
yeah.
your other catalog. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the trend. I think that's the trend today. And also, people are starting to listen to, I mean, this has moved a little bit back into where we started with your YouTube channel. Many people are starting to watch YouTube on their TVs. And it's
Exactly what I've been doing. Yep. Yeah.
exactly. So engaging on your TV is nigh on impossible. So you can watch the video. You have to. It's a real faff to try and like a video whilst you're watching it on the TV.
That's a very good point. Look, I think you can I think you can like and subscribe. Okay.
You
I think
can.
I probably haven't tried commenting, and
You
that's a
can. You
really good.
can't. You
Right.
can't.
Okay. That makes sense. By the way, that absolutely makes
Yeah.
sense,
Hmm.
and that's a really interesting perspective. And I hadn't thought of that. And look, one of the things I'm really excited about with the channel is the engagement. The comments
Yeah.
are just gold, and the opportunity to have a chat about and debate or different
Hmm.
insights or different perspective on some of the topics. So you're right, but we also know that YouTube is now the most watched platform in the
Yeah.
world, right? It's beyond
Oh yeah.
Netflix.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so it's a good
And
place to
and
be.
do you notice as well? I think I don't care what face comes up on YouTube. I don't care as long as I start listening and engage, and they've got something to talk about, and you have a very approachable demeanor. I think that's the word to use. So
It's very
so if
nice. Yeah.
you're well, no, you have, and so you can listen to your voice and you talking passionately about something, and it what makes you want to keep listening, and that I think is very, very important.
I think that's
Um,
something that I took away a couple of things that are underneath that. I've always had. It was probably one of my skills was my voice. So I did do a lot of community radio as I was doing university, and I'd had my own shows. I was on multiple stations and doing the announcer thing as well.
yeah,
And secondly, through my work, I've been doing a lot of communicating,
yeah,
and yeah, as a leader and presenting and engaging with customers and stakeholders and things like that. And I think then with Indy over 50, one of the lessons I took away is if you're going to do a channel, then do it about something that you know about and you're passionate
yeah,
about. And
definitely
that's, so I'm glad that comes across because it's
does.
genuine. And the other
Yeah,
thing is, I feel that I come from a perspective of sharing and engaging, but not as a master. I just consider
no,
myself someone else on the journey of, oh
yeah,
wow, when I put out about the popularity score on Spotify, which a lot of people don't know about, it was generally
no.
because I found out about it, and it was so I thought, well, I'll share about the Spotify
That's it.
popularity index
Yeah,
score.
yeah. Well, some of the videos that I put out on my channel are like reaction videos as well. So
I saw
I'll
that.
be I'll be watching people's things, and I'm trying not to be controversial on a reaction to it, but when it really strikes you as being not right, or right. You like Jack and Daisy, for instance. Those there's two artists, and they're a duo, and they play some amazing covers, and they do them properly. And when I say do them properly, I mean you are hearing what they're playing and what they're
Yes.
doing. Now, what happens, and you'll notice it because you're a musician. You know what you're doing. And you will notice it more than all the others. And you see all these comments on people. And there's an artist, let's say, for instance, they've sung a song in a studio, they've had it mixed, they've had it done properly and everything like that. And then they sit there with a microphone on their bed and
Yeah.
mime to it, And
Yeah.
I don't mind that as long as they're up front with it.
Yeah.
But there are people like saying, "Oh, what an amazing sound!" And how did that's just fabulous. What a voice you've got. That was the 60th take. That was,
And
you know,
I don't mind. You're right. It's a lo-fi video,
yeah,
organic, authentic, but underneath the layer there, compression,
yeah,
dB, EQ.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's literally professional mastering and everything on
Yeah.
that track that they're
Yeah.
they're miming to. And I
Yeah.
mean, we know that the best musicians in the world have always done this. They've always
Yes.
done this, and they've always done it. But I think it's a shame, and and I know we're jumping around on our subjects here, but I think it's much more exciting to sort of do, talk about music in general, and that this is what is encouraging young people to come onto the YouTube circuit
Mm.
and to try and perform. So hang on, you've got this person that doesn't know much about engineering, doesn't know much about the music industry or how it works, how it doesn't work. They grab a microphone, sit on their bed, and sing, play it back, and it sounds terrible.
Yeah.
And then they think to themselves, "Oh, I'm terrible. I'm not a good
My
singer. I
voice is
can't sing
bad.
tune. My voice is
Yeah.
bad."
And it's
Yeah,
not.
exactly.
It's
And
not. The
it's not.
microphone on this
No,
iPhone is not good enough to broadcast a
no.
song.
No, exactly. And I learnt that over years and years and years and years. And I went from an old Bayer dynamic microphone that I had to this, to that, to
Yeah.
the other, to other. And I've ended up with TLM 107. Now, that microphone is like £1,500 worth of microphone. And there's a difference. There
There
has
is.
to be. There has
There
to be a
is.
difference.
There is a difference, and even though the technology was very basic and simple for the Beatles, we talked about earlier in the very first
Yeah, we
recordings,
do talk
they
about
were
the good
still
old Beatles.
the best of best
Oh, yeah.
microphone
Yeah,
and
yeah.
desk and engineer.
Exactly.
So they still had the best of the best because Abbey Road, you probably remember the
Yeah.
stories that they had the issues that the engineers had were with their amps because they were just battle weary amps
Yeah.
from handling.
Yeah.
Imagine the
Uh,
noise and the rubbish coming out of them.
yeah. Vox. They
That
were
was
all
their
Vox
jump.
amps, weren't they? They used to use
Yeah.
Vox and other ones. But yeah, when I went to Abbey Road, we were still using the UA86s or UA87s, which were like valve microphones. So
Right.
we had just under £500,000 worth of microphones when we went there.
Yeah.
And
And
the ones that
there's a
Sinatra had
difference.
sung into. Oh, massive,
Yeah.
massive difference. I mean, I'm very lucky because I've done a lot of treatment in my room. I've bought a reasonable microphone. I couldn't have afforded to do that when I started. There's just
Yeah.
no chance at all. And there's absolutely no way as a gigging musician or traveling musician that you'd be talking about a TLM 107. You wouldn't.
I
You'd be
think
using a Rode.
there's an argument, isn't it, about it's a poor tradesman who blames his tools. But
Yeah,
I think the other way I look at it is if you give Eric Clapton, an off-the-shelf Squire, that costs $200, he'd still, or two
yeah.
hundred pounds,
Oh,
whatever
it
it
was
is,
brilliant.
he would
Yeah.
still make it sing. And you'd
Oh, yeah, he
think,
would. Yeah,
or Mark Knopfler, he could just do that. So I think
yeah,
talent can still shine on a poor instrument.
Okay.
But they're going to do better when they've got their 57 original
There
Les
is
Paul, whatever it is.
my mindset on that. And whenever anyone asks me, you must get people ask you as well. If there's it doesn't. I also get a bit annoyed by young aspiring. Hang on, why does it always have to be a young aspiring? I mean, and you're, Indy over 50 is proving that fact. There are
Yeah,
people that in their 50s, they've
coming to music fresh. Yep.
come into music fresh, and the trouble is the people look at people and instantly judge. So they'll look at someone like me, say for instance, as well. That's like, I'm 59 now, and they'll go, "Well, you obviously let your time go in music. You obviously, obviously because of your age, you aren't, you didn't do very well when you first started, and you got to 59, and you're still not very well known or things like that." And that will be an instant decision that nearly everyone that looks at you and thinks, "Oh, you're a singer, but I don't know you. If I don't know you, then you're not successful, and you've not done very well, have you? And I think if
Well,
I
I
was,
think you might be right, but that's probably your inside
it's
voice
more of an
speaking
inside
more
feeling.
than
Yeah,
other
yeah,
people. Yeah,
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 you're
yeah.
right.
And we all we're all there, by the way.
I know. But if I was 17, though, everyone would instantly think, "Oh, up and coming. I'll
Yeah.
listen." Not got there. Seriously, even though it may not be quite as bad as I'm making out, because I'm, as you say, it's my inner feeling and stuff like that, that there is definitely a judgment that happens on a view. On
It's interesting
instantly
you say
someone
that.
looks.
And I'll just prompt I'll just do a small promotion for a moment, and maybe because I know we'll need to think about the time of, but as a final suggestion,
Yeah.
I receive and hear so many links, Spotify and YouTube, of great songs, and I put them onto different Spotify playlists. Here's country and here's indie rock and one playlist I've got on my Indy Over 50 YouTube channel is called Favorites. And it's me playing God. I just get my favorite YouTube videos. And I'd invite anyone, if you put the link there or whatever, if they want to check out awesome Indy Over 50 talent, people that they've probably never heard of, but are worth a great listen because the talent. And usually, my criteria as well is not only a great song, but a great video. I really respect and appreciate the people who've gone to the effort of a video. It's so easy now just to have the album cover for the whole song, or for a lyric video that you can tell is pretty much straight out of the can. But I can see some amazing people who've spent a long time and had fun and done some amazing film clips, and that's what I'd invite your listeners to, if they wanted to, check out some emerging talent on Indie Over 50.
Yeah, and I'll second that because it is well worth watching. And to add to that, that's where the music business is going.
Mm-hmm.
The music
Yeah,
business is not now about the top quarter of a 1%. It really isn't. And YouTube has opened that up to everybody, and everybody that embraces YouTube, anyone, don't matter what age, doesn't matter whether you're a starter, whether you're not, there's more empathy around YouTube than there ever has been.
yeah,
And
yeah,
what I mean by that is people are prepared because they're sick of having things rammed down their throat that they should listen to. Yeah, and they're being told, oh, listen to this remaster of Queen's latest hit. Well, they haven't got a latest hit, so it's a remaster, it's a
Yeah.
rejig of the Beatles. I mean, I love that stuff. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm not going to look at it,
Yeah.
but I will, because I will. But if you want to actually find new music, new good music, then there is more good music in this area than there is anywhere else. And it's well put together music because we've got our
Yeah.
home studios. It's equally as good as the stuff that's been created now. There's very few things that are missing. We can even master tracks to as high a
Yes.
caliber as any one of the new releases. And the difference is that we're doing it because we love the music. We're not doing it to finance our next trip to the Bahamas, because that's not going to happen.
Well
We,
said. Well said, Gavin.
we're doing it because we love the music, and
We
and
love it.
that is the way it started, isn't it? When you
Yeah.
think the bands, the Mersey beat scene, you know, those young people, those 16, 17-year-old Beatles and things like that, they were only doing it because of the music, because the fame hadn't been invented yet.
No, no. They didn't think they were going to
It
be
wasn't
famous,
there.
and they didn't think that they'd have a
No,
career. They couldn't think beyond 2 years, and
no,
so they did it because
that's
they
it.
loved it. Yeah.
And I think there's a massive big circle, and we're back to there again. We're back to there again. The problem is you're probably not going to make it. Let's just be open there. You're probably not going to make it, but you're going to make an impression on potentially millions of people's
That's it.
lives,
Yeah.
and that's what music's about, isn't it?
Yeah. It's about
And
sharing a message.
I
Yeah.
think it
Connecting.
is. Yeah, and I think on that point, John, I'll say thank you ever so much. We are going to do this again, without a
I'm looking
doubt.
forward to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to have an in-depth discussion with you about AI.
Let's do AI.
I want to have an in-depth discussion about how the recording process and all sorts of things like
Yeah.
that. I think it will be very useful to your sort of subscribers and my subscribers. So thank you very much, John.
Thank you
We'll
so
see you
much, Gavin.
soon.
I wish you a good evening and a good day there in the UK.
Good evening to you too. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye bye.